Today we're comparing and contrasting as well as setting you up with the best loadout for the 416, the 416 Assault Special, and the 416 Shorty. I had previously covered the 416 Assault Rifle in my 416 Best Weapon loadout video, so there will be some repetition in some of the points and setup. I am going to be thorough with this one. We will see how these three rifles play against both Sentinel and Wolf targets. I will be discussing these three guns in the utmost of detail as well as sharing my thoughts on them. I just want to say that this was a request by user PD Pablo, so I do hope this video covers exactly what you were hoping for, my friend. Now let's get started. First, we are going to set up the 416. We're going to go with the ASR standard barrel, the ASR standard magazine, the ASR suppressor, the Moldier, the digital sight, the ARM stock, the auto single trigger, and a grip pod. Now for the 416 Assault Special, we're going to go with the ASR Standard Magazine, the ASR Suppressor, the ATP IAL X3 Laser, the EXP3X G33 Scope, the ARM Stock, and lastly the RU Vertical Foregrip. For the 416 Shorty, we're going to go with the ASR Standard Magazine, the ASR Suppressor, the Moldier, the Micro T1 Sight, the Auto Single Trigger, and lastly the RU Vertical Foregrip for the underbarrel. Now that we've set those three guns up, let's chat about what the difference is between the three rifles, and then we'll test them out. Alright, so here are the three sets of stats for you to see how these rifles rank side by side, but I know it's hard to actually compare them this way, so I took that information and I made this for you, which should make the differences between them a lot more clear. Alright, so let's delve into these charts a little bit and break them down, because what these bars indicate don't really define where these guns truly rank amongst each other, and I will be explaining why. So, overall, you probably think, well, the 416 Shorty takes the cake here. It has the majority over the other two guns. However, it's not the best overall choice, and again, let's break it down. When it comes to the accuracy, these guns are all about level. Sure, the Shorty does rank a little bit higher, whereas the 416 and the 416 Assault Special sit level just below, but I gotta say that the accuracy of the Assault Special doesn't feel as good as the 416 and the 416 Shorty variant. This also plays in with how these guns handle, which we will get to shortly. That's because with the Assault Special, you are limited to only automatic and burst fire modes, because I find that the 416 Special kicks a lot more, especially when hitting targets further out. The 416 wins this battle. The 416 wins this battle overall for a variety of reasons actually, but let's open this up a little bit more so I can explain why. The next category is handling, and as you can see, the Shorty again ranks the highest in the handling category, and that's because it should sit the highest. It is a close to mid-range assault rifle, and it needs that tight control because it's best used in close engagements. Now the handling for the Assault Special is nothing to write home about, guys. It's pretty much average, and it does show when you are playing with it. I will discuss that a bit more when we do open up the next category. The handling of the 416, however, sits at a perfect enough spot to get the job done for you. So sure, it may not be as high as the Shorty, but combined with the next couple of categories, it will make a lot more sense as to why the 416 is the best overall choice. Alright, so this is a big one. This is range. This is where the Shorty pretty much nopes out and solidifies itself as a close range weapon, because anything farther than medium, and it gets pretty hard to hit those targets. The 416 is the clear winner here in the range category, and that's because at a distance you can actually nail those shots because of its beefier build and its ability to fire in single shot modes. Now I know that the 416 Assault Special does sit at the highest in terms of its range when you do compare it against the other two rifles, but because this thing lacks in its handling as well as its accuracy, and because of the fact that you only get burst fire and automatic firing modes, this thing is not very effective at long range engagements. Those two firing modes paired with that poor handling and accuracy does not lend itself well to those ranged engagements. So even though it has the highest range, it does not beat out the regular 416. Next up, we have mobility, and I don't have much to say here other than they all feel about the same. Obviously, the 416 is the beefier rifle here alongside of that 416 Assault Special, but they all feel pretty much the same. Again, much like why the 416 Shorty needs better handling than the rest is the same reason why it takes the winning spot in this category too. It's because of those close range engagements, guys. You need to be a little quicker on your feet, but again, they all feel about the same in this category, despite what those levels indicate. Lastly, we have recoil to look at, and this is also a big one. The Shorty, hands down, has the best response when firing in automatic firing mode, so that recoil almost is non-existent with the Shorty. It feels incredible at close range, guys. The 416 and the 416 Assault Special obviously are a little beefier, so they have more kick. However, you can absolutely control that kick with our current builds, especially with that 416. The 416 Assault Special overall just fell flat for me. The recoil really does hurt this rifle even more because of the poor handling. The poor handling and the poor recoil response make for a bad time, guys. So it's clear to me what the best overall pick is. It's the 416 Assault Rifle. This is because it's the most versatile choice overall. You get excellent results at all ranges with the 416, and that's ultimately the deciding factor. The 416 Shorty takes second place because it really is a phenomenal gun at both close and even medium ranges too. The Assault Special comes in last place because it has weak handling, weak control, and it has pretty terrible recoil, and these three things ultimately ruin an otherwise decent rifle with good range capabilities. Now, I don't want to knock the Assault Special too far down because it can be a pretty fun gun, especially in those louder, unsuppressed, close to medium ranged engagements, and you will see now when we do these tests that it is in fact actually the most powerful of the three rifles, but it's not really enough to make it feel considerably better, but it is something worth noting. Alright, so now that we have those three guns set up and you know what the difference is between the three guns, let's test them out against both Sentinel and Wolf targets, single shot, center mass, with and without a suppressor, and we're going to see how well each of these takes them down. We're going to start off with the 416 against Sentinel with a suppressor.
Damn, we got
2 shots. Without a suppressor now. 2 shots confirmed. Let's do Wolves with a suppressor. 7 shots. Without a suppressor now. 5 shots confirmed. Moving on to the 416 Shorty. We're going to start off a Sentinel using a suppressor. 2 shots. Without a suppressor now. 2 shots confirmed. Let's do Wolves with a suppressor. 7 shots. Without a suppressor now. 5 shots confirmed. Moving on to the 416 Assault Special against Sentinel with a suppressor. 2 shots. Without a suppressor now. 2 shots confirmed. Let's do Wolves with a suppressor. 6 shots. Without a suppressor now. 5 shots confirmed. So overall, the 416 and the 416 Shorty both have an equal damage output against both Wolves and Sentinel targets while suppressed and not suppressed. Whereas the 416 Assault Special does give you a slight edge with the suppressor against Wolves by requiring 1 less shot needed to take them down. Now, I know what you're thinking. The Assault Special is only stronger by 1 bullet while suppressed against Wolves. What the hell, man? That's not enough, but it is. And I'm going to explain why. It's actually very useful when working in stealth, because much like the FAMAS G2 and the M4A1 Tactical, when suppressed, set to a burst fire mode, all you need is 2 quick trigger pulls and those 6 bullets will immediately land on impact, taking down those Wolf targets. So the difference between the 7 shots against the Wolves with the suppressor you get with the 2 other variants compared to the 6 shots needed with the Assault Special is night and day. Because even if you had those 2 others set to burst fire modes, you would need 3 trigger pulls, which is not as effective as the 2 trigger pulls that equal 6 with the Assault Special. So that is kind of what the Assault Special does have going for it, but other than that, it is the weakest of the 3. So now that we set you guys up with 3 great 416 builds, and we covered what the difference is between the 3 guns, and we tested them out against both Sentinel and Wolf targets, let's discuss why I chose those parts that I did. Alright, so with the 416, I went with the Moldier over the other lasers offered because it gives you a nice 10% increase to the range and a decrease of 10% to sway. These 2 buffs together work hand in hand because when engaging at a distance, you need that reduction to sway to keep those sights leveled and on target. On that same note of range, that is also why I chose the digital sight for the 416, because it provides you a 1x and a 4x optical range, which gives you exceptional visibility when firing at a distance. And because I noticed this thing does kick a bit when going loud in automatic modes, that Moldier does tighten in that up with a beautiful 20% decrease in its shot spread. So that Moldier really does benefit the 416 and you should absolutely use this laser on it in conjunction with that digital sight. Still on that topic of range, that is also why I chose the grip pod, which elevates the range capabilities even more on this beautiful rifle by 10%, and to top it off, it drops down the vertical recoil too by 7%. Lastly, I went with that ARM stock, not only because I like the way it looks visually on this gun, but also because it helps with the horizontal recoil by a nice reduction of 7%. So overall, the 416 build here is an absolute monster that will give you crazy good results, especially in those longer distances. This is one of the best assault rifles in the game, and you should absolutely try this build out. Moving on to the 416 Assault Special, I built this thing specifically to combat its bad handling, its shitty control, and its terrible recoil, but I also wanted to keep this gun very fast moving because it is best used in louder medium ranged engagements, and you need the speed when moving on the fly when you are engaged loudly. So that interchangeable EXP3X G33 scope option here is a must. It gives you that flexibility to bounce between ranges, and it will help you out on the fly, and that's also why I went with the ATP-IL X3 laser, because the multi-A option is not available here for this gun, but that's okay because with this laser we get a 10% decrease to the horizontal recoil, as well as a 10% decrease to shot spread, as well as a 7% decrease in its time to aim. So this choice actually ended up being the better choice anyways for this gun, because it really does need that recoil reduction and that shot spread reduction. So again, plenty of attachments chosen here specifically to help control this thing. Moving on now, again, to tighten that recoil, I did choose that ARM stock. It gives us a 7% decrease in the horizontal recoil. And lastly, I went with that RU vertical foregrip for its boost in the time to aim by 7%, as well as its decrease to the vertical recoil by 15%. So overall, with these attachments, you will have an overall reduction in the time to aim by 14%, a decrease in its horizontal recoil by 17%, and a reduction in vertical recoil by 15%. Again, these were chosen specifically to help this gun in its weaknesses. Alright, so let's discuss the 416 Shorty now. So this thing is a dream in close ranges. I chose that micro T1 scope because I think it works great and it's a little different than the other two scopes chosen for those other two builds, just so we have a bit of variation in the styles between the three setups. I went with that Multi-A not so much for its ranged bonus here, but more for its visibility afforded to us, as well as its buffs to sway and shot spread. And as I mentioned earlier, the Multi-A gives you a reduction in the shot spread by 20%, and because this thing already does control so exceptionally well with this reduction to shot spread, you are looking at an immovable force in close range engagements. This is a snappy weapon with great control and stability, so to add to that further, I did use that RU vertical foregrip, which makes this thing that much more snappier with its reduction in the time to aim by 7%, and yet even more boost to its already phenomenal recoil by a drop of 50% in vertical recoil. So overall, guys, when it comes to picking which one of these three rifles is the best rifle all around, the answer is the 416, hands down. It's the most versatile weapon at all ranges of combat amongst the three rifles. The Shorty does take the cake at a close second. You can absolutely ignore the Assault Special because it really does fall flat, especially with all things considered. You have better options out there in the burst fire category, like the M4A1 Tactical or the FAMAS G2. The 416 has your back for those medium to long ranges, and the Shorty has your back in those close to sometimes mid-range engagements too. So you do not need that third option, being that Assault Special, which does struggle to find its spot amongst the three variants. Well guys, that's the 416, the 416 Assault Special, as well as the 416 Shorty. I hope this video did clarify what the difference was between them. Go play around with them and see for yourself which one you do prefer, but when you do, stick to those loadout setups I gave you at the start, because those will ensure you will have the best setups possible for the 416 variants. And as always guys, thanks for watching and take it easy.